Hey guys, Michael here, the Homemade Genius, here with another video for you today. We're going to keep on moving with our knife making series from concept to cutting edge, where I'm taking you through a step-by-step process that I follow when making a knife. Now, as I've said in previous videos, and I'm going to say it to you again today, I'm not an expert knife maker. I'm not a professional blacksmith or a metallurgist or anything like that. I'm just a hobbyist who picked up knife making about a year ago, and I've been having a great time doing it ever since. We have done quite a bit in this series so far. We started out coming up with our design, turning it into a technical drawing, taking that drawing and making templates, using the templates to cut out our blanks from steel and get our profile ready. And we've talked about selecting the metal, and now we're up to the fun part, which is heat treating. I've really thought about the heat treating process and what I do and how to get it done and the best way to convey that to you guys, and really try to get it down to, if I could give you guys one bit of advice when it comes to heat treating, what would it be? What would the one thing I could tell you guys that if you followed would give you consistent results time and time again that you'd be happy with? And I've whittled it down basically to one thing. Have it professionally done. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't look at other videos and try to do those as well. I don't recommend you do this. Anything that you're going to see here is not meant for you to be doing at home. And I know the first thing some of you are going to say, well, you're doing it, why can't I do it? Well, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'm not a professional knife maker. I am not a professional blacksmith or anything like that. I never said I didn't have experience with it. I just said I wasn't a professional, and that's true. I've had enough experience in dealing with heat, metal, fire, flame, welding, all that type of stuff. I'm comfortable enough to be aware of those dangers to the point that I know that I can move forward with a process and try something like this. Yes, it's still dangerous. Yes, it's still risky. But my skill set has put me to the point that I'm willing to give it a shot. And I've been pretty successful with it. Again, it's not perfect. I don't have a electric forge at downstairs that I put this into and program the temperatures to the right precise degree for the right amount of time and have it all set computer generated perfect. This is all backyard stuff. So if you're looking to get a good knife done, I would check with local blacksmiths, metal shops, anything like that to try to get you in touch with somebody that can heat treat knives for you. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go through and show you what I'm doing here, but the video that you're about to see is not a tutorial. It's more of an entertainment video, informational video. A lot of you have asked to see how I heat treat the metal and a little bit further than just walking over the forge. I'll walk you through this process. When I'm done here, we're going to cut downstairs and you're going to take a look at the setup that I've got down there. So before we do go down there, I want to walk you through and let you know what it is I'm doing. I've created a little forge down there, basically just out of some paver brick and some stuff that I had to contain some coals. I just use regular charcoal and a leaf blower. It's a little overkill, but it's the best thing I've got for out there right now. And I use the air to pump into the forge, for lack of a better word, to ramp up the heat. I load my knife blanks in there, try to get them in there as organized as I possibly can. I then let them get up to temperature, pull them out, dunk them in oil, set them off to the side, and we call it done. A couple of things to keep in mind. The first is getting it up to temperature. How do you know when you're reaching the temperature? Forgive me, I'm sorry about this cold, guys. Well, basically what happens is this. As the heat increases in the metal, the molecules move. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter, starts glowing and getting to where you want it to be. The sweet spot's 1550 degrees, and what happens at that stage is the metal has all of a sudden lost its ability to be affected by magnets. You can take a magnet, hold it right up to it, and it won't stick to it. That's your key. Once you've reached that point, you're done. Go ahead and come off the heat and go right into the quench. Once that's done, you let it cool down for a little while, clean it off. You stick it in the oven at about 450 degrees for about an hour or two, and then let it cool down slowly on its own. So what's happening through that process? Let's talk about that for a little bit. And again, this is just my best way of explaining it to you in the most basic of terms. Right now, the metal has grain, just like a steak has grain, just like wood has grain. Just the way that the way it's lined up, the metal has a grain. And when you first look at that grain, it's very random, kind of like pulling hair out of a brush and throwing it down. There's no uniform structure to it. It's just a knot. When you heat it up, the molecules start moving and the fibers start to straighten out and the grain starts to get in a nice pretty line like train tracks. Once that happens, you take it out of the heat, quench it, shocks it, it gets cold really fast and everything locks in that beautiful shape. But there's a problem. At that point, the metal is extremely hard and it's also extremely brittle. You can take it and smash it with a hammer and it'll snap, it'll break. That's no good, especially for any kind of tool or knife. So then what you do is you take it and put it in the oven, where you're starting the process all over again, but this time at a much lower temperature. Rather than starting out with this random ball of knot, though, you have a very clean line grain, okay? And as you heat it up, it starts to relax and starts to relax, and the fibers start to, they're still uniform, they're still straight, but they're not quite so rigid and rough. You hit the temperature, you cut it off, let it cool down on its own. The metal's still kind of sitting there. So now you've got much more unified lines, not quite as straight and as brittle as you were when you hit the 1550 degrees, but still hard enough to do your job. That gives you a very hard edge, a very hard knife, but still has some flexibility and some bend to it so that it doesn't chip every time you brush it up against something that's hard, a rock or stone or what have you. Why do we do it like that? Why don't we just take it and put it in the oven and let it go that way? Well, it's almost, think of it in terms of this. You've got to destroy it before you can rebuild it. So you're taking something that's very random, very imperfect, turning it into perfection and locking it at that point. Once you've done with that, you've got a beautiful clean slate, kind of like tearing an old decrepit house down that's on its last legs, getting it down to the foundation, and now you're going to build up a better house on top of that foundation. Once you've done with the forge, putting it in that oven is essentially the rebuild. You start with a beautiful, clean, perfect slate, and you loosen it up. Different temperatures and different times in the oven will give you different hardness. Setting it at 525 degrees for 3 hours is going to give you a different hardness than setting it for 425 degrees for an hour. Just depends on how much you want that metal to relax. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs, mainly because I don't have all the answers to the ins and outs. I understand a very high level as to what's going on. And I know that I'm probably not 100% on point with my description here, but I'm trying to make it as basic and as easy to understand as humanly possible. And at its very, very core, that's kind of what's going on. Again, guys, if you're an expert in this and you know the ins and outs, help me try to explain this process. I'm only going based on the research that I found, the reading that I've done, and what I see happening. So, in the comments below, if you want to try to clarify or correct anything that I've said here, please do so. The comments are wide open to you guys. So at this point, you got a pretty good idea as to what's going on. The next step is to go downstairs, get the blanks, light up the forge, and get cranking. Hopefully the little description here kind of gave you an idea as to what to expect. The rest of this video is pretty much just going to be show. There is one thing that I wanted to explain to you guys before I go any further, and that is about the blades. There's a lot of discussion as to whether or not you start the bevel before or after you do the heat treating. Well, logic would tell you to start the bevel before because the metal's a lot softer now and it's easier to work. I tend to agree with that. However, I kind of go halfway. What I do is I take the edge, because right now the knife is essentially got a spine like this. Very sharp ridges, very sharp edges, okay? So when I come in with a belt sander and I'm holding the knife at the angle and the belt sander's sitting right here, it's going to hit that sharp angle and it's just going to shatter all the ceramic that's on the sanding belt. If I take and soften that edge up just a little bit before I heat treat it, when I go over to the sander to go ahead and refine those bevels and put the edge on, it's going to come out a lot better. It's going to come out a lot easier, and it's going to be less wear and tear to the sanding belts. So guys, enough chatterboxing. Let's go downstairs. I'm going to get the forge set up, get the camera set up, and let you watch the rest of this video and just enjoy the process. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Stick around, we'll be right back. Here we go, guys. Still a little warm. That's the process. Not a whole lot to it. The complicated part is just making sure that you time it right. You want it to get hot, but you don't want to just ram the heat so high, so fast, like a inferno, because you don't want to, burn it. You want it to heat up evenly. You want all of it to get that nice, red color, that get up to temperature and get to the that sweet spot, that 1550. When I buried it in there, I wanted it kind of buried in the coal. That's why I had a nice big bed of coals so that it was evenly hot across the whole blade. And I put them in blade side first because I'm more interested in getting a hard edge than I am a hard spine. I want that hardness across the board, but it's more important to have it across the edge here. When I put everything in, I put that top on, and that concrete top kind of directed the heat to help evenly bring everything up to temperature. Once I saw it approaching that hot spot, I picked it off and then started messing with the air to let it just kind of gradually get up to temperature. And if you notice, in some of the areas, I really didn't care if some of the handle was sticking out. Not that I didn't want it to get hot as well, but that's not an essential part. This area right here, if this part of the handle in the tang is not at the exact same hardness as it is over here, you're not going to lose anything. It's still going to be a very strong, still going to be a very durable knife. Your focus is going to be always on the blade. That's where, at least that's what I've seen. The focus should be on the blade. Now again, if that's not the case and it needs to be a complete even heat from one side to the other for any reason, guys, correct me and let me know. I'm trying to learn as well as show you guys what I'm doing. Appreciate you guys watching. Hope you liked the video. Again, if you're an expert or somebody that has a bit more information than I do, please leave me some comments. Let me know down below what I should have done different, things I need to consider, anything. Always trying to learn here, guys. So thanks again. Thumbs up if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And Genius out. Thanks.